And welcome back, Veterans Assistance to Gaining Employment. Earlier, we talked about several things, and I'm joined now by 3 employers. And what we set the stage for is, what did we do for those service members about to leave? What kind of training did we provide them? What did we encourage them to do? How long did we have to talk with them? For the case of retirees, up to 2 years, they know about it and they hear about the beginnings of what they need to be doing. For those that are separating from service after 1 enlistment or 2, they only have 1 year and they have to get themselves ready. And when you take out all the holidays and leave and vacation and all those other things, they don't have very long at all. But now they're coming to you. So joining us now are 3 employers.
My name is Josie Allen Choate. I'm a retired veteran, and I currently work at J.P. Morgan Chase & Company as an executive recruiter.
My name is Pamela Taylor. I am a staffing specialist with Manpower.
Hi, my name is Ellen Donegan, and I'm the recruiting specialist for a company in Tampa and throughout Florida and Georgia called TAW.
Great. The last thing we talked about before we broke in our last segment was, what do you, the employers, expect us to have done in order to present our veterans to you for that very first employment? So based on your all's experience, we'd like to hear from you. What is it that we're doing right? What is anything that we're doing is wrong? What do we need to change? What are you seeing?
Some of the things I think that you're doing right, especially for veterans and those that are exiting the military today, is having the transition assistance program with all the different services, teaching them what they need to do when they're exiting as far as resume writing, how to dress when they're going to employers for jobs, teaching them how to do their research when they're looking at different employers.
I feel the same way as far as preparing the veterans for what to expect in the workplace, how to prepare themselves, doing their market research as well.
And I also think it's also beneficial to have employers such as us to come and volunteer and give them real life experience, give them an opportunity to really understand, and from our perspective of what it is they should and should not be doing. Again, the resume writing, there's a lot of resources that you offer them that are very beneficial that people in civilian life don't have the opportunity to take advantage of. And they're very fortunate that they do have that support in all levels, not just interviewing, but of course what benefits are due to them. And I feel that it's a very beneficial program. And I think that you all do a great job. There's a lot of people that are very dedicated that work in the veterans units that are very helpful to those that are transitioning. So I think you guys do a good job.
How are we doing with the education piece for those coming out? Do they have enough? Do they need more? What do we need to do to encourage them to seek either training inside the military or that civilian education before they leave? Are they coming out smart enough?
The veterans that we're seeing today, they're coming out with their degrees. What I saw 10 years ago, we didn't see as many veterans coming out that had the education that they have today. So I think they're on the right track, getting the degrees before they come out. And if they haven't gotten the degrees, then attempting to further their education when they do get out and continuing to go to school and get the degrees. Now, if a lot of them don't really know what types of opportunities they're looking at, I would suggest going to some type of a trade school to try to hone up on their skills and get more experience, and to also learn the types of position that they are looking for.
I think it's important, if they do have limited education, to emphasize the training and the certifications on their resume that they received while they were in with military service. Very important to stress that.
Most definitely. And I think too that depending upon, I'll give an example, someone that's in the Navy that's got nuclear background is very beneficial. That, from what I understand, I think it's like $1 million education that they get. And I think that they really need to research what type of positions they would like to do. If they don't do any further screening with these vets to kind of see where their strengths are and their skills lie, maybe that they need to do that a little bit more. to kind of give them a path of where they may want to be.
And I would also suggest the researching the companies that they're looking
Yes.
at. A lot of the companies offer their opportunities for them to further their educations. But knowing which companies offer those opportunities is something that the veterans need to do more research.
What about our veterans that have been out for some time? They were in Gulf War I, or they were in the 70s or 80s. We have them from 22 to 82. How do we help them, the older ones? And
Well-
I'm in that category.
Well, I think what needs to be focused on is definitely their experience. I think that it needs to be showcased in their resume and concentrated on the industry or the position that they're going to be looking at, making sure that they're not using too many military jargon or speak, as I say, more civilian in tone. I think that that's very important.
Well, what's the limit on a resume? Sometimes I hear 1 page for every 10 years. With mine be 4 pages long. That's way too much information.
Well,
How do we tailor that?
We sometimes tell them to go back no more than 10 years on the resume,
Correct.
at
Correct.
least 2 pages if possible. But you may have been out of the military for at least 15 to 20 years and you have a wealth of experience and knowledge. In that case, I would say no more than 3 pages at least to showcase your experience in those other markets when you're coming over to different types of employers.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if you put the total years on your resume as to when you were in the military and some of the positions, so an employer does have an idea of exactly what you've done, because there may be a military contractor that really is more interested in what you did earlier in your career as well as what you've done in your civilian life, but that would be a very important piece for them.
What about those vets that are my age that don't have the technology that they need? I don't use a computer. I've been a plumber for 35 years, once I left the Navy. I don't use a computer. I don't know how to turn it on. What's a mouse? Go get your granddaughter. She'll tell you all about it. How do we overcome that? To say to them in their resume, I want to learn and I'll do everything I can and I'm working at it, but I'm not there yet. How do you accept that kind of enthusiasm?
I think you said it right there, is the
The
enthusiasm.
enthusiasm.
It's part of the interview process, showing them that that you're eager to learn, that you want to find out resources to use for the position. I mean, there are resources out there for training. Become familiar with them.
And I would think go to your workforce center too and ask
Correct.
for the veterans rep or somebody there that could help you with that, because you do have computers there that are accessible to them, and you can, there's job listings. I mean, a lot of companies are on the internet, but they all are in the newspaper and so forth. And I don't think that as many people are as not friendly with the internet. I think that if they just have somebody guide them a little bit, that they would feel more comfortable.
Well, we're trying to do that at our center with our work studies that are going to school. They're there for one reason, to help those veterans
Correct.
to work on the computer and get it done.
And there are a lot of high schools that offer programs too that will help them to learn the different functions of the computer, getting on the internet, how to look at different companies on the internet. And a lot of companies also offer some retraining to help them get the experience they need.
What are the absolute do's and don'ts for resumes? I mean, you must see thousands of them a week. I mean, there's got to be some favorites.
Well-
Don't do this because.
Well, I would limit my personal information that I put on there.
Yes.
We don't need to know your date of birth. We don't need to know the date that you graduated from high school. We don't need to know your marital status or your political affiliation or anything, unless it's an organization that is a professional organization. I would recommend that.
Yes.
Not putting your DD-214. That's not
Exactly.
something that you need to do. And sometimes, we get candidates, and I'm not saying so much veterans, but just candidates in general, that will give their social security number out, their driver's license
Yes.
out, all their
Right.
personal information, which they're not required to do. And of course, for safety purposes, You don't want them to do that. The other thing is like their cover letter. Sometimes the cover letter has more information about the
Correct.
position
Yes.
of what they can do than their resume does. So
I think also suggesting a dedicated email address for your job search, something that's focused directly on job search, not going to your
And
personal.
Professional, I would
Professional.
assume.
Professional,
Yes.
I should
Yeah.
say that,
And
exactly.
And I would
voice
say having
messages,
don't have your voicemail with music on it that's going to play the whole song, and where when you try to reach them, it's playing the song, and you get tired of listening and you hang up. You don't leave a message for them because that could hinder them as well.
I think it's important that they understand that this is the first impression that
Correct.
they are giving
Yes.
to a potential employer.
And I would also recommend that if you have a LinkedIn account, that you put your LinkedIn information. I would
Correct.
not put my Facebook or my YouTube or anything other than a professional link to see exactly to see, you know, their professional experience and so forth.
What would you say is the most important thing about going to a job fair or something similar to that? With a career fair or a job fair, and there is a distinction. What should the veterans be doing when they go there? What should they expect?
Well, I think first of all, you get a list of the names of all the companies that are going to
Right.
be there, and you target which companies you feel are most appropriate for your job search. You find out what you can about the company, and then you target that, and you need to target your resume towards specific positions. I would go onto the websites of these companies, find out as much as I could what job opportunities are available, because I knew me as a recruiter, it means a lot to me when I have someone come to me and say, I looked your company up and I really was interested because you do this, this, and this. That shows that they have genuine interest in that. And of course, dressing professionally, having a
Always.
resume ready to go.
Yes.
How long is my elevator speech?
30 seconds.
30 seconds.
Max?
Max.
Most definitely, and just to say, hi, this is who I am, what I do, and what I'm looking for. And
Yes.
one of the things that's a pet peeve of mine is if I ask you what kind of job you're looking for, and you say,
say,
I can do anything, what kind of work do you have? I would expect that you would, not be that indecisive, that you would know what it is that you're looking for, and not be too general in what you're looking for.
And I say be prepared. Bring enough resumes with you. A lot of companies now, their applications are online, but when you go to a job fair, be prepared. Bring enough resumes with you to give to the companies that you're targeting. Don't come without one.
And be dressed professionally. And I would recommend you don't bring your spouse or children unless the
Right.
spouse
Yes,
is looking
yes.
for a job. And these are real things that I've seen at all types of career fairs and job fairs.
We have a program called Yellow Ribbon, and that's where the reserve components like the Air Force and Army, Navy, Marine Corps, and for example, here in Florida, the Florida National Guard, they are in a position that they're going to be processing out, or in some cases with the Guard, they're getting ready to come on orders and to deploy. So they bring their families with them. Now they provide a child care space, but they're just like you said, sometimes they have to have them. How much of a distraction is that, if any?
It is a distraction, I will tell you. And unfortunately, it may not be the case, but the impression may be that, there might be an issue with childcare, which unfortunately may or may not be the case. But the other thing is that, we want to have your time and your focus, and sometimes it's distracting when you have little ones running around or pulling things or
Right.
crying.
And I would say too, if you have to or have the need to bring your dependents with you, I would have, if the spouse is with you, have the spouse walk away while you talk with the recruiter so there's not that distraction.
Correct.
Correct.
Excellent. Because we're usually there, we try to be there, and we can pass that on so that they know.
I think the yellow ribbons may be a little bit different than going to a
Correct.
job fair.
Right.
It's a different,
It
you
is
have a different
kind of-
objective.
And there's a
objective.
lot of stress. I mean, especially the
Right.
ones about to deploy.
Right, and I can
Right.
understand why they would want their family with
Right.
them.
Right, and that's a specific instance where an employer would
Correct.
understand and know and
Right.
get.
Right.
But
Right.
most job fairs or career fairs that are not military focused,
They won't understand.
exactly, they're not going to be like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Most definitely.
How about promptness in arriving for the interview? And when does the interview really begin?
The interview begins when you enter the property.
Yes.
Correct.
So if, for instance, if there's a security guard at the gate before you can enter the property itself, your interview begins there because they are filming you. So you can watch the tape. The security guards will at times call back to the recruiter and say, your candidate is here, but my God, were they rude.
And the same thing when they come in the door and they're
It makes,
rude.
the first impression is a lasting impression, so if you think that coming up to the security gate or coming to the receptionist doesn't have an impact, it does.
It does. Everybody's important. Politeness is very important. Not arriving any more than 10 minutes prior to an interview is key.
How about if I show up in uniform? What does that tell you?
Well, if you show up in uniform, then that tells me that either you're still in the military, one, and you didn't have an opportunity to change, that is your uniform of the day. And we don't penalize you for having your uniform on because we look at military veterans as people of good quality and good character. So that doesn't matter to us. But if you have an opportunity to change, I would change into something that's more professional, like business dress.
And I think too, if you tell the recruiter at the get, look, I really want to interview, but I have to be on patrol or whatever the case may be. Would it be acceptable if I come in uniform? And usually you'll say yes, and tell the manager, look, you know, they're coming from work, and we've done that even for civilians. That if
And they'll
they're
have respect for
yeah,
you.
exactly.
Right. Communication
Because
is very
sometimes
key.
it conveys, at least what we understand, it
Yes.
conveys that I'm not really work ready yet because I'm still on active duty
Yes.
Correct.
for a period of time. What I thought about while you all were talking amongst yourselves is what do we do and not do in an interview? What are those habits that we have, perhaps as military, that we should avoid? Or what is it about our posture, our expression, the way we convey our message? What do we need to avoid and what do we need to strengthen?
I would think that one of the things is when you're talking to a recruiter or the interviewer, that you keep in mind that they may be civilian and not
Yes.
retired military. So if I ask you a question specifically on equipment that you've worked on and you give me a military term, I'm not going to know what you're talking about. So I think that, and I'll defer to Josie.
And also when you're interviewing, relax. When you go into an interview, military, we tend to be stiff. Our posture is very straight. We don't know how to relax yet, so that's one of the key things that you want to do when you go into an interview. Relax. You'll be able to answer the questions and you won't be nervous when you're relaxed.
I think it's important to do your research on the company before you go in, so you're prepared to answer any questions the interviewer might ask about the company. Also, prepare questions yourself. Ask clarifying
Yes.
questions that you
Yes.
are interested in knowing.
And I would say too, create your brand before you go to the interview. And when the interviewer is asking you questions about yourself, you've already created a brand for yourself. You know how to market yourself better.
Yeah, I think too that keep focused on the question at hand. Don't veer away from, you know, when the recruiter or the hiring manager asks you a question and you kind of go off in a different vent or vein, to keep to the subject at hand. Also not talk too much and not too little. If somebody asks you a question, don't just say yes or no, kind of expound on that. And also concentrate on your strengths too, as to what the job description says, and kind of, as Josie said, brand yourself, wherein if I look at a description, I know what they're looking for, and then kind of tailor my experience and my skills and qualifications directly to what it is that they're looking for.
How long do you have to read a resume to make that decision? This goes to the hiring manager, it goes in file 13?
30 seconds.
Yeah.
At the most?
Yeah, if it comes to us now. My company, when I get I look at all the resumes.
Yeah.
But there are other companies that have resume searches, that have keyword searches, that if you don't have the right keywords, your resume never.
You never make it.
Never makes it
Exactly.
to the hiring manager.
So you need to look at advertisements and also the ad of the particular company of
Yeah.
keywords, and make sure if you have those experience, not to just
Yes.
put the keywords in there unless you have it. Make sure that it's in your resume.
And make sure you look at the job description and detail your resume as to what they're
Exactly.
asking for if you have that experience.
Bring a resume with you to the interview. The hiring manager may not, or they may or may not have a copy, but you want to bring a copy with you
Or
to your
several.
interview. Or
Yes,
several.
because the-
And also certifications and
Yes.
awards and evaluations might be appropriate too.
What about the second resume? I have my one to get the interview, but here's the real story about me, my branding, that I don't want to bore you with all this, but from the hiring manager's side, this should answer all of his or her questions about what my experiences really is, especially if I'm in the IT field. And is that just overwhelming?
The one that tells the story about you, it's going to be a little bit more overwhelming if you have 3 or 4 pages. The recruiters don't have time to look at that many pages, and neither
Right.
do the managers that are going to be interviewing this candidate. So I would say, look at the job. Detail in your resume what this job description is asking for, if you have done these things. So rewrite your resume based on the job that you're trying to get.
As opposed to bringing a second resume with you, be prepared to answer those questions
Yes.
yourself. Train with somebody, practice with somebody, but you don't want it on a piece of paper. You want to relay that information to the hiring manager directly.
Yep. Your resume is your calling card, but it
Yes.
isn't all about you.
And make sure you're able to speak to what you put on your resume.
With all your experience, do the people that really practice their interviews, does it show that they've gone through their own mortarboard first before they've come to you?
Yes.
Does it stand out that much?
It does.
Most
It does.
definitely. And also eye contact, smile,
Yes.
your posture. Don't get too comfortable, but you want to be professional without being looking like you're a wood stick or
Like too
Rigid,
stiff.
right.
Yeah.
exactly.
And remember to turn off your cell phone.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Don't chew gum when you come to an interview.
Just you want to have a
The
nice
little
clean
things
profile.
that
Little
you
things.
think are.
Here's your chance for posterity. What are those things, boy, I wish I could tell somebody this. What comes to mind when you think about interviewing do and don'ts? Do this and don't do that really sticks out. Boy, this one came and she said or he said, and it was an absolute turnoff.
So you want war stories is what you
Well, in a way, yeah. But it brings a unique piece because you're sitting there and you listen to everything day in and day out and you know what.
Be on time
Yes.
to your interview.
Right. And it's a shame to get that point and just let something small as your phone being on
Yes.
destroy the whole accomplishment of making it there.
And answering the phone.
Yes.
And not,
Not only
sometimes
but answering.
I might be able to forgive you if the phone goes off, but if you
Accidentally,
if you
answer
answer
it, is
No.
is a little bit different. And keep to the job at hand. Don't start talking about your family. Don't start talking. Not that I don't care about your family, I do. But if it's not pertinent to the job, you don't want to volunteer a lot of information.
And I think that's something that we can prepare veterans more for. A lot of them have not interviewed in 20 years.
Right.
So being more prepared to interview for this particular job that would help them. And also telling them, don't talk about your family because they think, I've heard veterans tell me, well, you didn't ask me about my family. I'm not going to ask you about your family. I'm interested in what your skills are
Correct.
for this particular job.
I know that really the interviewer should not be asking you personal questions. They should not be asking you about your religious affiliation or
Yes.
your how many children or marital status. And there's some, they also should look at legal and illegal questions to ask.
Yes, exactly.
At the end of the interview, ask the hiring manager, do I have the qualifications for the position? That may give you an opportunity to strengthen their thoughts on you for the position.
What about a phone call to you that says, I'm not looking for a job as much as I'm just doing some background information on the company. Do you have a moment to speak with me? Or can you direct me to someone that can?
Well, I will just tell you from personal experience, companies are very short-handed, and believe me, I would love to talk to every single person, but we really don't have the resources to do that, because if we did, we wouldn't be able to do some of the other
Right.
jobs. And
Yes.
just so
Okay.
people realize that if you're calling or your resume gets sent, you're not automatically going to get a response. And sometimes people have time to speak with you, sometimes they don't, but don't take it as a personal affront if they can't.
What parting words would you have for our veterans?
be prepared when you're looking for a job outside of the military. Research the companies that you're looking to join. Find out as much information about this company as you can, because most times, most often, when you go into an interview, that's one of the first questions they ask you. What do you know about this company?
Pam?
Brand yourself, identify yourself, become involved in social networks, LinkedIn, Twitter, follow companies online.
I would say be true to yourself too, and really try to focus in on what you really want to do. I know it's not easy. It can be very scary to transition from one position to another, but to really, as the ladies have said, be prepared, send a thank you note.
Yes.
Just be cognizant of the fact that they have a lot to offer, and
Take advantage of their
Exactly.
resources.
Resources.
Ladies, I want to thank you for joining us today, and for all of our people that were here today. Thank you for the time, and we hope that those of you that are watching this got something from it. You don't have to be a veteran to appreciate what was said today. And again, this was Veterans Assistance on Gaining Employment, and thank you again.